It's an honor for these musicians who give their time, their effort, and their education, and a few of their days of summer to come up here to perform.
Well, absolutely, and I think some of the thing we have to remember, too, Ray, is the fact that in the city of Detroit, there's such a big problem now with extracurricular activities, school millages not passing, and programs like band and like sports are not going to be able to continue unless they get the money to fund them. And to see a great group like this all-star, all-state high school band performing at halftime of this great football game, a high school all-star game, is really, I think, a credit to all the people, the moms and dads, and all the supporters and boosters of high school athletics and high school extracurricular activities around the state. It's something these kids need. It's part of their educational process, and I'm just delighted to see the Michigan high school coaches include this band in their great show.
Before we check the statistics, let's listen to this band once again. The Michigan High School All-Star Band performing for the very first time. We'll have the first half statistics for you right around the corner, but now, this time out.
My friend Nancy's been doing a lot of drugs. I know it's catching up with her. I can see it coming. But what can I do? If I like say anything, she'll think I'm not cool. And I don't want to lose a friend. I mean, it's her life. Right?
If you have a friend who's in trouble with drugs, don't just stand there. Do something.
You know what moms are like. You bring home a new guy, they put their foot down. Come home a little late, they put their foot down. Well, my mom's no different. I get this great new Oldsmobile Cutlass Calais with a quad 4 engine. And what does she do? You got it.
This is not your father's Oldsmobile.
I put my foot down.
Uh-oh.
This is a new generation of.
Get up to $1,850 cash back on any new Cutlass Calais. See your Oldsmobile dealer today.
Never thought it'd work. Send everybody from the plant to school. Give us union guys a say in running things. Look, 1 million cars from right here. Wasn't easy. But I figure GM customers are getting some of the best-built cars in America from these guys. So, I guess it is working.
The UAW GM Training Partnership is now the largest private educational program in the world.
This afternoon's game is being brought to you by Mr. Goodwrench. Mr. Goodwrench knows it's not just a car, it's your freedom. And by the new generation of Oldsmobile. Step into the future now at your Oldsmobile dealer. And by General Motors, the mark of excellence. Well, Barry Smades has been our statistician up here, and Barry is keeping track of what's been happening during this 31-13 ball game. So we've got some stats for you before we have our second half kickoff for you. And to let you know exactly how the cash register is ringing up right now with the East and the West. And the rushing yards and the passing yards, Jim.
You can see the big differences in the rushing yardage. And again, the East squad with the two trapping guards working extremely well, better than 100 yards better than the West on the ground. Through the air, the East hadn't had to throw that much because of the fact they've been able to run the ball. They got the big first pass, which gave them most of their 107 yards. The West got 149 yards through the air, and a lot of that came from the big touchdown pass to Ojinski. Total yards, you see there the difference. The big key again, as is always in most football games, the two big turnovers from the West, resulting in 10 points for the Eastern squad. A couple of records we should look at individually receiving. Ojinski for the West squad has 93 yards receiving. That puts him in 4th place all time through these all-star games, and he needs just 7 yards to move into 3rd place. The leading receiver of all time in this game is Dan Glidden, who played for the East back in 1983. He had 153 yards in 3 catches, believe it or not, including 2 touchdowns, and that long one was for 89 yards, which is the record in this all-star game. So Ojinski, the big receiver for the West squad, looking for 7 more yards to move up in that all-time list. And also, we've got some interesting rushing stats in the sense that Antoine Stevens, with a big run, has moved up into the rushing category, but the leading rusher of all these games has been Steve Jones with 108 yards and 13 carries. He did that back in the first All-Star game back in 1981. He had 101 net yards. Torrin Dorn, one of the great running backs out of Southfield, had 71 yards rushing back in 1986. And Courtney Hawkins is playing right now for Michigan State, had a 73-yard day back in the 1988 game just last year.
Leo Esch, our spotter, has moved down to the locker room and then checked down below at the press box or up above us to get the official word on the young man that was injured, Mike Kresnicki, out of Warren De La Salle just before the first half ended. And it is a dislocated left elbow. That is what they believe, but he will have some more x-rays just to make it safe. But it looks as if right now he is through, not only for this game, but for the next few days with a dislocated elbow. So if we hear any further developments on that, we'll pass it along to you, but we wish him well and a quick recovery in a hurry for him.
Looking at some of the defensive stats from Barry Smades, the West leading tackler, John Dignan, he has 6. Toby Van Pelt has 4. And Van Pelt, of course, has seen limited action. He was a late add to this West All-Star squad, and yet he's second team in tackles with 4. For the East squad, Scott Wadlishkin is with 5, and Eric Beatty also has 5. Barker and Kresnicki both have 4 tackles in the first half. As this has been a defensive struggle for these kids, they've given up the big play, and the 2 big turnovers by the West squad, helping the East to 10 points in that first half, helped that East squad to the 31-13 lead with 2 quarters left to play. And I think one of the big things we'll look for here in the second half, Ray, is how the West squad handles that quarterback situation, whether they continue to alternate quarterbacks each play, or whether they'll let them stay in for a series and then alternate.
You know, the first couple of games that we did here, we saw some of the coaches preferred to use, let's say, the quarterback in the first quarter, then bring him the other quarterback into the second quarter. And even the series, I think, as you mentioned, not second guessing, but really might benefit each quarterback and maybe the teammates that are playing around him on that offensive unit. But we'll wait and see.
Well, as we talk, get him into the flow, get him into a rhythm a little bit. There you take a look at Matt Ide, the quarterback for the West squad, a youngster, 6'4", headed to Michigan State, highly recruited young man. And he might be somebody we'll look for down the line, because Michigan State's quarterback situation after this coming season might be muddied up a little bit, and Matt Ide might get a chance to play in a couple of years right here at Spartan Stadium in front of a much bigger crowd wearing the green and white of Michigan State.
The West will be kicking off to the east despite trailing 31-13 here, and it'll be Jerry Young out of Clio kicking off. A couple of interested fans making sure that their favorites are on the field right now. And Alexander will be back deep for the Eastern squad, wearing that white jersey with the blue trim, number 23, back at his 7-yard line. Taken at the 13-yard line by Barker of the East. comes to the far side of the field, gets up across the 35. He is taken out of bounds on the 37-yard line. 28-yard return, but he did a lot of running to earn the 28.
He did a good job breaking it all the way across the field, really getting something out of nothing. You see this, he starts upfield, sees nothing's going to happen that way, reverses his field, then uses his good speed to get outside and turn the corner as he was able to break the contain of number 24 out there. That was Brad Johnson out of Schoolcraft, who did not keep contain and allowed Barker to get that extra yardage up over the 30 to the 39.
The East will go with Paul Anderson at quarterback, and he'll open up the series with a pass going to Alexander. Laterals off that pass, and on the run is a Jerry, who took the lateral from Alexander and gets an extra 15 to 17 yards down to the 21-yard line. But it was Alexander who made the reception, and then he had the little swing man in behind him, the trailer, Jerry.
Little flea flicker. You see there, Anderson? The throw to Alexander, and then the quick pitch. Good hands by Ajiri there. That pitch was out over the shoulder, but it's a legal play, and one of the 3 trick plays. We saw the West, rather the East, open the game with a trick play, and here in the second half, they open this half with a trick play, and it is a big one.
39 yards worth down to the 22. Fumble on the snap. Recovered the West. So a break for the West, and maybe this will perk him up a little bit. Anderson having a little problem with the snap that came from his center. He's used 2 centers in there today, Ruhana and Shalatsky. And Lance Treese recovers for the West.
And it was a very simple play. No hit caused the fumble. It was just mishandled by the quarterback, Anderson, and Treese right there was able to get on the football. Big play there, because the East squad had just made a big offensive play with their flea flicker, and now the West has gotten it back on the turnover.
Jim Clement starting at quarterback for the West here with 11:15 to go in the third quarter. His handoff going to Nalicki. Nalicki finding lots of daylight, reverses his field, drives it up the middle, and winds up at the 49-yard line. Started out at the 25.
Well, I think if the first few moments here of this second half is any indication, I think the coaches for that West squad had a talk with that offensive line, and they went to the track play using number 64, Matt McCaffrey, to come around and make a big block on the linebacker to free Nedlicki up the middle. But they're taking a page out of the playbook from the East squad, using their guards and trapping and trying to make something happen on the ground.
The West will continue to rotate their quarterbacks. Matt Ide now moves in a quarterback, replacing Jim Clement. And the handoff this time going to Tony Jackson. Jackson bounces up for a couple of yards, gets across the 50-yard line. Great speed, but he was greeted there, first of all. And that was Darren Beasley and Steve Rakowski.
Beasley was the man who made the original from that defensive spot and slowed back down enough, and Rakowski got in there. But again, you see the West, again, I think shows good confidence in their coaching staff right there, that they're not trying to get it all back in a hurry. They're staying on the ground, pretty much staying with a game plan, even though they're trailing by 18.
Clement back in there. This time he wants to pass. Got a lot of time, going deep. Looking for Harper. Intercepted. Harper was the intended receiver, but coming in there for the East is Scott Bodishkin. And he makes the interception, the young man out of Novi.
Now, the mistake in the play there comes from the quarterback, Clement. This ball should be thrown outside down the sideline. Instead, he throws it back down toward the middle. And what Lishkin is sitting right there in the middle, he's got inside position on the wide receiver, Harper. If the ball is thrown over the outside shoulder down the sideline, the worst that can happen there is an incompletion. But if you throw it down the middle of the field where that defense is, you got problems.
First and 10 at the 9-yard line for the East, straight ahead, crosses the 10 up to about the 11-yard line. The East getting the ball right back on the interception. Sadowski, the carrier for the East. So he's already had a little bit more work here in the early going of this second half than he had in the first half. And the big call goes out. Let's have Big D right now. Defense by the West.
Well, that's the key to this whole second half for the West squad is defense and those interior linebackers, and take away that trap play that's hurt them so bad in the first half.
Youngblood handing off this time to his running back, Sadowski. gets a couple of yards. And Frederickson, the interior, the tight end, defensive end coming in, and we might get roughing.
Well, that time, Frederickson, number 49, took on the play. Watch the guard, number 60. He's coming out to block, and Frederickson just stuffs him in the hole and makes the hit. That is the way you stop the trap play. You do not let that guard get into your chest and move you out of the way. And Frederickson took on the block, stuffed the guard right in the hole, and the running back had nowhere to go. And that, if they can keep that kind of play up on the defense and in their interior line with their linebackers, they will stop that trap play from being dangerous. The other problem now goes to the east. How do you counteract that better play by that defense of the West? You try to kick him outside. Fake him inside with a trap, quick pitch outside, and try to break contain.
Unnecessary roughness, personal foul. And it is a face mask call. Yep, you can see it there on the replay. Reach it in on the face mask. So they had the ball at the 15, mark it back to the, call it the 7-yard line. Third down, got rid of it just in time. Good pursuit by the defense. And trying to stay out of the end zone was Bryant Satterley. Boy, he broke a couple of tackles, but in there to finally wrap him up. A very dangerous play for the East, almost a couple of points on a safety. But Frederickson doing a good job to get in there.
Frederickson headed to Michigan State, and I'm sure George Prose is loving to see that right now, because this lad has really done a great job in the second half. We saw him the play before, take on a guard trap and stuff it. Here he uses that great speed, and Michigan State, of course, known for that great defense. Frederickson done a great job here as the East now punt.
Richard Barker handling the punt, and the West taking that, and will have good field position on an 11-yard return. And bringing it back for the West, Brad Johnson.
Well, this is what the West had to have happen in order for them to get back in the game. I thought it was going to be different because of the fact the East came out in their first play and made a big play on the flea flicker, but the West got it back on a turnover, moved the ball down close enough, and then the defense held up and forced the East to kick, and now field position is in the favor of the West. They got to make something happen out of this turnover, though, or this turn of events.
Jackson on the carry, trying to get outside. It's a no-go that time. Good defensive move that time by Derek Bowman, who comes up there around the ankles, makes a stop. If you just joined us, you're watching the 9th annual Michigan High School All-Star Game, coming to you from Spartan Stadium here on the campus of Michigan State University. And the score, the East 31 and the West 13. That's the way the score ended at the end of the first half. And right now, the West trying to get back onto the board with some more points to get a little bit closer to the East. Second down, and still 10 yards. Clement wants to pass, no go. And folks, that was not a blitz. No, it was not a blitz. And the nose tackle, Lee Kruger, came in there to make the hit.
Kruger is headed to the University of Wisconsin. He's out of Catholic Central in Detroit area, Redford Catholic Central. And he just beats the block and heads upfield, and right in the face of Clement. He had no chance to get that ball off. What a big play right there after the poor punt by the East squad. That defense has risen and has answered the challenge.
Make it third down and 17 at the 35-yard line of the East. The West still with the ball. Third down situation. Trips on the left side. 3 wide receivers at the bottom of your screen. And still waiting to find somebody open. Going over the middle and hitting this time as Ide completes to Ajinski. Not enough for the first down, but gets inside the 25-yard line to the 23. And a 12-yard gain on the aerial.
And so Ajinski now becomes the third all-time leading receiver in this All-Star game as he is over the 100-yard mark. And he makes a great catch here as he again does a great job of following Ide out of the pocket as Ide had to scramble. Ajinski found an open area, and Ide with that great height at 6'4" found him and drilled that ball in there to him. Now it's fourth down. Big play for the East or West.
Need 5 yards, and over the middle they've got it to Johnson. The running back coming over the middle, and Johnson then hit hard by Lewis Lowe, the interior linebacker, but It was a first down for the West.
You know, interesting thing about Lewis Lowe is you watch the play, he will put a big lick on the receiver, and yet they call Lowe, this number 75, the man who drills the receiver. He's a very polite kid and a great kid. They like him a lot. The coaches think he's a wonderful young man. I tell you, when he straps the helmet on, though, he goes through the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde routine and becomes a vicious linebacker.
That's what they said about you, was it, Mr. Brandstatter?
No, I was always the lover type.
No way. No way. On the carry, Mike Nedlicki. And he gets close to the 10-yard line. Mark it at the 11-yard line. Line of scrimmage at the 15, a 4-yard gain. Second down and 6.
I tell you, that Kruger kid that you see in the middle of that defensive line, a middle guard, he's headed to the University of Wisconsin. Reminds me of another Wisconsin middle guard that was an absolute great one. Same initial started his last name by the name of Crumrye.
That's right, he was outstanding. But
very good. Kruger looks, boy, like a mirror image.
Robert Johnson on the run again. Climbing a couple of backs of his line mates, trying to open a hole for him and really just moving the force ahead. And a flag is down. Let's see if there was any motion called on the West that time. No, it looks like the way the West players are reacting, that it's going to go against the East. But we'll wait and see from the officials. 5 minutes and 7 seconds to go in the third quarter. Again, the East leading the West 31-13.
Well, they're talking to both captains over there, both offensive linemen.
Couldn't they have an offsetting job?
We'll have to wait for the official.
A couple of personal fouls, and they will eliminate one another. So nothing happens on that. The ball will remain at the 7-yard line. Third down. And a long 2, call it 3. Third down and 3. Got the first down, got the touchdown. Boy, coming through in a hurry was Tony Jackson out of Saginaw Bell Catholic. And he has got the West going now in the second half and got him on the board for 19 points.
I'll tell you, Ray, what helps make that play is when you see them line up, watch the split the tackle takes. Number 75, he is way out from the guard. That created a natural hole. And the tackle, number 75, Mike Oswald, just had to get a piece of his man. And when he did, that was all that Jackson needed with that quickness to get through the hole. A big split between the guard and tackle created the hole, a piece of the block, and the runner was in the end zone.
Jerry Young trying for the extra point, and he's going to be a little bit wide. The line shot misses to the left. And so the scoreboard will remain with 19 points for the West. Meanwhile, the East with 31. The West will be kicking off. We got 5:02 to go in the third quarter. Now let's take this time out.
GM makes the dream. GMAC makes the dream yours with either financing or smart lease. Handled quickly, easily, right at your GM dealers.
The dreams of America, GMAC.
It's not just a car, it's your freedom, an open ticket to ride. It's what this country is all about, a feeling deep inside, that wherever you want you can go. There's a road that'll take you there, 'cause Mr. Goodrich knows it's not just a car, it's your freedom.
Take a look at the touchdown once again. 64 against the block, but look at how far out the tackle number 75 is. Oswald split his defensive man out about 3 yards from his guard. Then all he did was get a piece of the man, but that created enough of a crease to allow the running back, Tony Jackson, to get through and score with that great 4-3 quickness. You can see 3:24, the time elapsed, 72 yards in 7 plays, 31-19 the score, and folks, that is the highest scoring Michigan High School All-Star game ever.
And we were questioning, wait a minute, why is the East kicking off and the West just scored? And Barry Smays reminds us a 12-point rule, 12 points or more, second half, and the trailing team can get the kickoff. And that's exactly what's going to happen here right now. The East will be kicking off to the West, and the West trying to get back in, trailing 31-19.
It was a good deal that that kicker missed the extra point.
Jackson decides, no, he thought about it just for a fraction of a second. I think I'll run it out, and then all of a sudden he said no, and the flag goes down to the 25-yard line.